I would like to take this opportunity to present my thoughts on the matter at hand, which I will express in the tone typically used by my parents when they express their entitlement. I will begin by stating that this incident occurred approximately 1 year ago. However, I recently purchased tickets for another lengthy flight, which prompted me to recall the aforementioned event. I was traveling from Hawaii to New York and had a layover in Chicago. The flight from Hawaii to Chicago lasted approximately 10 hours. I had booked my flight well in advance to secure a preferred seat. I selected the window seat on the exit row, anticipating its optimal positioning. As I awaited boarding at the airport, I was eager to confirm that my seat would be ready. We commenced boarding, and I was among the first groups to board, ensuring that I had all the necessary items from my bag. I then proceeded to prepare for the flight. I had my headphones on and was engrossed in a Netflix series approximately 10 minutes after takeoff when the woman seated adjacent to me tapped me on the shoulder. "Excuse me," she said, "I'm flying with my family, and my granddaughter would like to be in the window seat." It seemed pertinent to explain the layout of the aircraft at this point. There were 3 seats on the left and right sides and 4 seats in the middle. The grandmother and her husband were situated in the adjacent seats on my side of the aircraft. The remainder of our family, comprising the mother and her 3 children, aged between 2 and 8 years old, were positioned in the central row. I expressed my regret at having selected this seating arrangement, given the length of the flight. I would have been willing to offer the grandmother the opportunity to sit in this location during the takeoff phase. Subsequently, I attempted to switch seats, but the woman appeared to be quite young, and I was uncertain if children were permitted to occupy the exit row. The mother overheard our conversation and became agitated, insisting that her daughter should have the window seats. I informed her that I had initially allowed her to have them, but that I had since changed my mind. This prompted a strong emotional reaction from the mother, who began to express her displeasure through verbal outbursts. While seated in the aisle, the individual in question was holding up the entire line of people attempting to reach their seats. As a result of their actions, the individual had caused significant distress to the young girl, who was visibly upset. It is hoped that the individual is aware that their behavior is unacceptable and that they will face consequences for their actions. At this point, the flight attendant had heard the girl's tantrum and was approaching the situation. The attendant inquired about the source of the issue, which involved the aforementioned individual and the girl. I was asked to switch seats with this girl, who proceeded to steal my daughter's seats and force her way in as I was assisting my daughter with her belongings. Now, she is refusing to relinquish the seats. I have my ticket, which clearly states that this is my seat. It is evident that she stole the ticket from my grandchild. I witnessed the entire incident, and I am extremely frustrated. The ticket bears my name, and I have my license to prove it's my name. The flight attendant reviews all relevant documentation. This is also her seat. It is inadvisable to disturb this young lady again on the remainder of the flight. The family directed dirty looks in my direction. At one point, the grandmother attempted to spill a drink on me. The flight attendant was handing it to me. On the subsequent flight, I would prefer to remain silent. There is no need to converse during a flight when one can admire the scenery and reflect on its beauty. Alternatively, one can engage in eye contact with a young child and express that they are missing out on something truly remarkable. The most remarkable occurrence I have ever witnessed occurred in a waiting room. I, an optician, was observing from the sidelines, but I felt that the story was worth sharing. A mother and her child arrived for their appointment. The mother was pleasant, and the child was engaging in quiet play. After approximately 15 minutes, the mother and child proceeded to the check-in area. For those unacquainted with the typical waiting room, it is common to find an iPad with a television playing a nature show. Since the audio is not required, the visuals are sufficient for the patient's entertainment. The mother in this case is observed watching the television with great interest, particularly the sharks. After approximately 15 minutes, the mother is called to the vision technician's office. The minutes passed by, and the entitled mother was called. The vision technician introduced himself and informed her that her name was Entitled Mother, and that she had a Titled Mother last name. The entitled mother continued to watch TV. The technician and I made eye contact, and I noted towards her that she was entitled. The technician shrugged and called her name again, then retreated. 5 minutes later, the technician tried again, this time with a more cordial approach. The child pokes his mother and whispers to her, "Shush," she responds, continuing to watch TV. The technician retreats once more and attempts another 5 minutes later, this time walking up to her and saying, "Excuse me, ma'am. Are you entitled?" The mother responds, "Yes, what do you want?" The technician responds, "We're ready for you to come back for the nice kids appointment. It is evident that we are currently occupied. I must insist that you reschedule your appointment, as it was booked 15 minutes ago. This is not my appointment, it is for my son." "Oh, it's okay, Mommy. I can go by myself." I must respectfully decline. "We would like to view the fish in the waiting room. Leave us alone. I will inform you when we are ready." This is not how appointments are conducted. The woman made it clear that she had no intention of leaving the premises. She proceeded to watch her show, seemingly unperturbed by the ongoing interaction between the technician and the receptionist. After making eye contact once more, the woman gave a shrug and returned to composing emails and texts on her phone. She then proceeded to the back of the office, presumably to inquire with the office manager about the appropriate course of action. 10 minutes later, the technician emerged and engaged in further discussion with the woman. The technician politely informed the woman that her son's appointment was imminent and that she would be required to reschedule if he did not arrive. "If you fail to attend your scheduled appointment, you will be required to reschedule. Please be advised that the show is always on and that you will miss nothing." The mother, who seems to be somewhat entitled, is ignoring the technician. "The child is attractive. Ma'am, I observe that your child is a very nice child. I see a dolphin. Ma'am, I see a nice child." The technician leaves, and other patients are called. This lady, who has been watching the two for over an hour, has not yet left. After an hour-long special, the credits finally rolled. At this point, the woman in question had been waiting for an extended period of time. When I returned from lunch, she was still there. The front desk receptionist apologized and informed me that the appointment had already finished. I was perplexed, as we had never left. The technician had called the woman 5 times, well past the appointment time. However, I understood that she had been watching fish on the television. While I empathized with her situation, I reminded her that her appointment had not been scheduled for 10 o'clock. The time is 12 a.m. It is now noon. You will have to reschedule. This is unacceptable. We have been waiting for a considerable amount of time. It is not my responsibility that you enjoyed the show. While we value feedback on the programs in the waiting room, you missed your appointment. I may be able to accommodate you at 3 p.m. If you are able to return, we will be seen now. Mommy, the lady told you to be quiet. The receptionist apologized and explained that, other than rescheduling, the doctor would not be able to see the patient that day. The mother acknowledged the situation but stated that she had missed her appointment and requested a reschedule. The receptionist clarified that the reschedule was necessary for the child's eye appointment as well. The mother expressed frustration at the lack of privacy in the waiting room and suggested that the practice should not allow TVs in the waiting room if they do not want people to watch them. I must apologize for the entertainment in the waiting room. Would you kindly reschedule your appointment for the next available time? The mother became visibly upset and abruptly departed without her child. The child, visibly distressed, lingered for a few moments before following his mother. I approached the front desk receptionist and commended her for her unwavering patience. I must be frank and say that I believe it is not uncommon for individuals to be late to scheduled events due to the influence of popular culture. In this case, the source of the tardiness can be attributed to the popularity of Shark Week. It would be unfair to hold the mother responsible for this particular instance of tardiness. The next Reddit post is from RoboDragon, so this story does not involve me directly. However, I am familiar with the actions and behavior of the entitled cousin through various accounts. My family members and a close cousin have shared their experiences with me since we were young. My cousin and I have been close since childhood. We lived in close proximity to one another, and we often engaged in activities together. The two cousins lived just a few miles apart, and they often engaged in activities together, such as riding bikes to each other's houses, playing in their backyards, and playing video games. The cousin from a wealthy family, whose father was my uncle, had a remarkable entrepreneurial success story. He started a business at the age of 20 and has since expanded it to multiple locations across the globe. Despite their affluence, the family maintains a modest lifestyle. They reside in a modest two-bedroom house. The family home is situated on a plot of land comprising several acres, with a large pond occupying a significant portion of it. The only extravagant item in their possession is a cruise, which they embark upon every 2 or 3 years. The good cousin is one of 3 children, with an older brother and an identical twin sister. The entitled cousin may be perceived as an archetypal example of an evil twin, but in this case, the good twin is the epitome of virtue. The good cousin is kind and generous, while the entitled cousin is selfish and entitled. The entitled cousin has always held the belief that her father's wealth was a birthright, rather than a result of his own endeavors. She was so affluent that she was not compelled to exert any effort to obtain her desired outcomes. She was a beneficiary of a life of ease, with material comforts and privileges readily available to her. Her brother and she enjoyed a privileged upbringing, with their needs largely met by their parents. However, despite this, their cousin demonstrated an understanding that financial resources were not a guarantee of lifelong security. Their parents were also notable for their benevolence and kindness. In contrast, their cousin developed an entitled mindset, which only intensified over time. She eventually married and had a child. The boy, the husband of the entitled cousin, is just as unpleasant as she is, so they were kind of made for each other. The entitled cousin always wanted to flaunt her child in front of her cousin, as if she were trying to gloat about having a child before her cousin did. The cousin had a history of poor relationships, including those that involved verbal and physical abuse. One time, the cousin sought advice from her sister after her boyfriend beat her. The entitled cousin had the audacity to blame her weight and not using makeup to make herself more attractive. The cousin was afraid to date anyone. Following the dissolution of her previous relationship, she finally encountered her future spouse, a kind and supportive individual. He is a gentle giant, the ideal partner to assist in the healing process and provide a loving and fulfilling life for her. Nearly 2 years after their initial encounter, the couple was engaged, and the entire family was delighted. The entire family was delighted that the cousin had finally found her ideal partner. Her father was eager to offer financial assistance for her wedding, which he believed would be a magnificent celebration. He had previously extended similar support to another family member when they got married. However, this individual was not pleased with the extravagance of the cousin's wedding plans. The cousin desired to be married at Niagara Falls and extend invitations to a vast number of her acquaintances. Her father was prepared to bear the majority of the financial responsibility for the event. The entitled cousin expressed profound displeasure. She proceeded to engage in discussions with the cousin and their father regarding the wedding and the potential impact of the expenditure on the family's forthcoming cruise. Nevertheless, the family proceeded with the cruise. Despite the children being grown and having families of their own, their father stated that the family cruise would have to be postponed by another year or 2 due to the financial burden of the wedding. Entitled cousin expressed outrage, attributing the cancellation of the cruise to a good cousin and her son, who was 5 at the time. She stated that she informed her son of the planned cruise and that he would be disappointed because his aunt had chosen to get married instead of spending a happy week in the tropics. Entitled cousin even demanded that good cousin reschedule the wedding for next year so that they could go on the cruise instead. Good cousin, who is normally not a confrontational person, she had reached her limit with her sister's attitude and informed her that if she wished to go on a cruise, she would have to pay for it herself. The entitled cousin and her husband were not as wealthy as their father. It was highly unlikely that he would reschedule his own daughter's wedding just to accommodate the entitled cousin's demands. The entitled cousin's outbursts continued. For several weeks, she alternated between attributing the disruption to her son's year to her sister and requesting financial assistance for her own cruise, citing her and her family's merits. This behavior caused distress to her cousin, prompting her to seek counsel. My recommendation to her was to withhold financial support from her cousin, who typically receives such benefits, and refrain from making any purchases. It would be unwise to extend an invitation to her to attend the wedding, as most sisters would do. The bride-to-be had expressed a desire for her cousin to be one of her bridesmaids, given that the latter had previously served in this capacity at her own wedding. However, her absence from the forthcoming nuptials would undoubtedly cause considerable distress to all concerned. Nevertheless, it might prove an effective means of teaching her a lesson. Consequently, the bride-to-be contacted her sister and informed her of her decision. She was informed that if she did not alter her demeanor, she would not be invited to the wedding. The entitled cousin became enraged, shouting at her and hurling insults. She also blamed her for the cruise being cancelled. The good cousin terminated the conversation and decided not to invite the entitled cousin to the wedding. The wedding was a success, and I was invited to attend as the bridesmaid for the entitled cousin. The wedding was originally planned, but the good cousin did not want me to be a bridesmaid. This was solely because she was aware that I dislike wearing dresses and would prefer to wear a suit. However, I informed her that I would wear a dress. I did this because I wanted to support her on her special day. It has been a few years since this event took place. The good cousin and her husband have a beautiful daughter. They are expecting a baby boy. The entitled cousin is still involved in the lives of the family. However, she has not attempted to manipulate her father for personal gain. Given her behavior towards him and good cousin, he threatened to leave out of his will if she continued to pestering either of them. It is possible that she will alter her attitude for the better now that she is no longer entitled to receive everything on a silver platter. This is a hope that many of us share. I am somewhat surprised that evil twins are a real phenomenon. Is anyone watching this video a twin? Let me know in the comments. It is disheartening to observe childless couples at Disney World, a family-oriented amusement park. These immature millennials expend significant financial resources on items that offer little intrinsic value. They fail to recognize the joy and happiness that can be derived from the experience of chasing a 3-year-old through the park. A year has elapsed. As I aged, I began to receive stares from other visitors to Disney World. I was assumed to be a bad mother, and I was particularly distressed when my son, Aiden, wanted to buy a Mickey pretzel but the line was very long. I told him we could go back later, but he became upset and began to cry. I felt terrible and wanted to take the pretzel from the other child, who seemed to be a nuisance. I felt that parents without children should be banned from the park, and that mothers with children should be allowed to skip all the lines. I realized that I had no idea what it was like to have to stand in line for an extended period. For 3 hours with a cranky, tired, and exhausted toddler, I am unable to simply inform him that we are unable to do something because it is his vacation as well. I would like to express my frustration to a childless woman who seems to possess a strong sense of entitlement. I would be interested in seeing an adaptation of every Disney movie in which the protagonist is an entitled parent. For example, in the film Frozen, the character would say, "Let me go, let me go, let me go to the front of the line." This was my attempt at singing as an entitled person. This is our final episode of /puppy bloopers. I am unsure why I continue to produce content for this channel when it is no longer popular. Cease. Is that your desire? Do not regard me with such intensity. I am unable to engage in such activities for extended periods. Canines, I am not capable of playing with you for the entirety of the day. You vocalize incessantly, and I am only able to respond once. I am unable to engage in such activities with you, dog. I am compelled to fulfill my occupational responsibilities. I must interact with you for a brief period if you desire physical affection. However, I am unable to tolerate the presence of canine excrement. I am unable to tolerate your presence, dog. I am unable to tolerate your excrement. I am unable to tolerate your presence, dog. I am unable to tolerate your excrement. I am unable to tolerate your presence, dog. I am unable to tolerate your excrement. I am unable to tolerate your presence, dog. I am unable to tolerate your excrement. I am unable to tolerate your presence, dog. I am unable to tolerate your excrement. I am unable to tolerate your presence, dog. I am unable to tolerate your excrement. I am unable to tolerate your presence, dog. I am unable to tolerate your excrement. I am unable to tolerate your presence, dog. I am unable to tolerate your excrement. I am unable to tolerate your presence, dog. I am unable to tolerate your excre.